In a world that smelled like hairspray and sounded like this.
I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft.
Under the sky, the color of VHS scratches, there was an idea that the entire world could be connected, that every single bit of information can be accessed by all, that a brighter future is here, a future where the internet solved everything. That future is dead now. The internet is almost dead too, and we are killing it. This is hands down the most recognizable symbol of the internet. It stands for the whole world being interconnected, able to share, cooperate, and build in freedom. It was never absolutely true though, and it is becoming less true every day. You've probably heard of the Great Chinese Firewall, a filtering system of giant proportions that China uses to keep out any information its government deems damaging. While often depicted as a single thing, the wall is a complex and sprawling structure that includes proprietary software, hardware, institutions, tens of thousands of professionals, and a whole set of vague and ever-changing legislation to keep that all in check. Its first iteration went up in the late 90s, barely a few years since China's been connected to the internet, meaning that for most of the internet's history, the symbol shouldn't have looked like this, but more like this. And here comes the sad part. China is doing all it can to export the firewall. The Chinese government sees it as a way to spread its influence across the globe, defining the way the internet functions. It's selling the hardware, providing the personnel, and offering the means to set up your own little firewall. It's never been so easy to keep information out of sight of your citizens. Some countries are eager to follow. Others are quite fond of the concept, but not too keen on China regulating their internet. Which is why they're building similar systems themselves. They're copying China's approach and methods, building their own firewalls that are tearing the internet apart. Can it get even darker? Yes, it can. Building and maintaining a giant filtering mechanism is expensive because every packet of data that goes into the country has to be closely monitored. And that's why certain countries go another way. They aim to cut themselves off from the internet. In 2019, Russia introduced the Law of Sovereign Internet, a legislative measure that would centralize control over all traffic in the government's hands and build domestic duplicates of all the worldwide infrastructure that allows the internet to function. The end goal of this project is exactly that, a sovereign internet, completely decoupled from the outside world, one where the citizens have no physical means to access any content that did not originate from Russia and was not approved by its government. So far, only North Korea managed to build something like that, and for larger countries, it's going to take quite a bit of time, but they are trying. And thus, the internet is splintering. Some countries build more and more complex filters to throttle access to foreign information, while others are working to a complete cutoff. The internet is not going to stay worldwide for long, or at least whatever's left of it when the rot takes in. You've definitely seen this message, or this, or this. More likely than not, you got there after clicking a link.
To know that everything on the internet has an address, and all web addresses start with http://.
These links hold the internet together. Google uses them to find web pages and show them to you. And without links to the source, Wikipedia would be just a whiff of hot air. There are countless applications where links are more than a means to satisfy curiosity. Scientists, doctors, lawyers, and countless other professionals use incredible amounts of information to keep humanity functioning, and they're able to use that information thanks to links. But for all of that to work, one very important condition has to be satisfied. Links have to lead somewhere. That somewhere is usually a server where the web page is housed. And if the server goes down, gets switched off, or wiped, the web page disappears. That happens constantly. In 2021, a quarter of everything linked in the New York Times website was dead too. A while ago, The Atlantic published a huge article detailing the problem and coined the name link rot. The article used an example of The Crossing, a Pulitzer-nominated media project that was a groundbreaking piece of journalism when released in 2007. 2 years later, the newspaper that published it went bankrupt, and the project disappeared. Years and years of research, an investigation like no other, vanished in an instant. The Crossing was saved only because its author had a spare version burned on a DVD disc. The project was restored and put back on the internet. The Atlantic article has a link to this project. Can you guess where that link leads now? If you've been online back in those days, you definitely remember the phrase,
"What's on the internet, it's out there forever. Owen knew that."
well, this statement is just wrong. Information is disappearing from the internet by staggering amounts. Crucial information that somebody uploaded once hoping for the forever part to be true, and never cared to keep up the server. The rot spreads, eating the data that is never going to come back, and making the internet a much sadder and more desolate place. But don't you worry, the new content is still being created much faster than the old one disappears, and artificial intelligence will ensure that we have more content than anybody cares to consume. Isn't that great? Never in the history of humanity has it been so easy to create content. Text, sound, video, you name it. It takes seconds to generate anything you want. The quality of that content is debatable, and the prospect of actually earning money from that is very slim. But that doesn't keep people from trying, and trying, and trying. Some of them create YouTube content farms with throwaway videos. Others generate blogs, social media accounts, or legitimate-sounding news sites. Hundreds of those have been identified and analyzed by researchers. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. More are being uploaded every day. Artificial intelligence is incredibly quick. It can exploit the algorithm and better adapt to ever-changing search engine optimization rules. It's not always reliable and doesn't work more often than it does, but quantity more than makes up for quality. There's an unintended side effect to that. In order for generative AI to work, it has to be trained. Up to this point, AIs have been trained on the content created by humans. Show a robot 1,000 genuine web pages, and it'll know how such a page looks. But in several years, genuine content will be harder and harder to come by. As the proportion of AI content gets bigger, AI will be trained on AI. And so, the internet is slowly turning into an endless sea of AI-generated garbage. A spiral of repetitive and formulaic trash, a network of clickbait, hallucinations, and pure nonsense. Yeah, that's just the worst-case scenario. There are ways to avoid that. There are people who are trying to limit AI generation and improve its quality, preserve whatever's necessary, and give others access to what their governments don't want them to see. But the success of these initiatives is far from guaranteed. And if they fail, this great invention of humanity,
information superhighway,
Wide world of web.
is going to turn into a polluted, rotten, splintered husk of itself. In other words, it'll die, and we, the humanity, will kill it. We hope you found this video informative. Please enjoy your internet while it lasts, and for something slightly more positive, check out our other explainers. Have a nice day.